$410 billion. That's the size of Africa's single richest economy in 2026. Sounds huge until you realize that's smaller than the market value of one American tech company. But here's what makes this list actually interesting. The order has been scrambled. Countries that dominated this ranking for years have dropped, and the reason isn't what you'd expect. It is not war. It is not a recession. It is not even bad leadership. It's something happening in currency markets that most people never think about. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why, and you'll know all 10 of Africa's biggest economies ranked by total GDP for 2026. Let's count them down. We open at number 10 with Tanzania. No oil boom, no tech unicorns, just 2 decades of steady 5 to 7% annual growth. Gold exports, agriculture, and a tourism industry built on assets that literally cannot be copied anywhere else on earth. Kilimanjaro, the Serengeti, and Zanzibar. There's also a new natural gas project in early development that could reshape Tanzania's export economy in the next decade. Slow, steady, and glamorous, and it works. At number 9 is Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire, the world's largest cocoa producer. If you ate chocolate this week, there's a real chance the cocoa started here. But this economy isn't one tricky pony. It's also a major gold exporter with some of West Africa's busiest ports. The secret weapon most people miss: Cote d'Ivoire's currency, the CFA franc. It's pegged to the euro. No wild currency swings, no surprise devaluations, in a region where currency chaos wrecks economic rankings, and we'll see exactly that happen later in this list. That stability is a genuine advantage. At number 8 is Angola. Angola, Africa's second largest oil producer, where oil makes up roughly 90% of everything the country exports. That's a risky position to be in, and Angola knows it. The government is pushing to diversify into fisheries and agriculture. But the project to watch is the Lobito Corridor, a massive rail line hauling copper and critical minerals from the Democratic Republic of Congo straight to the Atlantic coast. It's backed by serious international money and could turn Angola into a key gateway for the minerals the whole world is racing to secure. At number 7 is Kenya, East Africa's commercial anchor. Kenya's basically invented mobile money as we know it. Safaricom's M-Pesa platform moves an amount of cash every year equal to more than half the entire country's GDP through phones, not banks. That's a staggering level of financial inclusion for a system barely 2 decades old. Kenyan Stock Exchange also punches above its weight, hosting some of the continent's most liquid and well-run public companies. And number 6 is Morocco, and this is one built differently than most on this list. Instead of just digging things out of the ground and shipping them away, Morocco manufactures. It's now Africa's biggest car exporter, shipping over 500,000 vehicles a year, and it also sits on a roughly 70% of the world's non-phosphate reserves, the key ingredient in fertilizer, which quietly makes Morocco essential to feeding the planet. Add a heavy investment on solar and green hydrogen, and Morocco looks less like a resource economy and more like an industrial one, which is rare in Africa. Number 5 is Ethiopia, and the fastest rising economy on this entire list. Ethiopia, near double-digit growth, sustained for 20 years straight. Do the math on that, and you get an economy that's multiplied several times over since the year 2000. Ethiopia is the second most populous country, home to the continent's biggest airline, and it's rapidly building a manufacturing sector through industrial parks that is pulling in global textile investment. Then in 2025, Ethiopia did something it hadn't done in 50 years. It opened a stock exchange, first one in half a century. That's not a small development. That's a country plunging itself back into global capital markets after a 5-decade gap. Now, we get to the countries everyone's been waiting for, Nigeria at number 4. In 2022, Nigeria's GDP was reported at over $470 billion, the largest economy in Africa, no contest. Today, the same economy converts to roughly $250 billion US dollars. So what happened? Did Nigeria's economy shrink by nearly half? No. Its currency did. In 2023, Nigeria overhauled the naira, merging multiple exchange rates into one and finally letting it float freely instead of propping it up artificially. Short term, that was painful. Long term, it fixed a broken system. Foreign investors could finally get their money out of the country again, and capital started flowing back into Nigerian stocks. Here's the part almost nobody mentioned: measured in its own currency. Nigeria Stock Exchange has been one of the best performing markets anywhere in the world. It's only when everything gets converted into the US dollars, which is how these GDP rankings work, that Nigeria looks like it fell. Measured by what money actually buys on the ground, Nigeria is still one of Africa's two largest economies, and its fintech industry, companies most people outside Africa have never heard of, moving billions of dollars a day, is the deepest on the continent. Don't mistake this ranking for decline. It's a measurement problem, not a growth problem. Number 3 might be the biggest surprise on this whole list: Algeria. Algeria never gets mentioned in conversations about Africa's economic powerhouses, and that's exactly why its ranking catches people off guard. It's one of the top 10 natural gas exporters on Earth and Europe's third largest gas supplier, a position that became enormously valuable once Europe went looking for alternatives to Russian energy. The catch: the economy is tightly state-controlled and the stock market is basically non-existent, so global investors mostly ignore it. But in raw economic size, Algeria outproduces several countries with much bigger reputations. At number 2 is Egypt. This economy has taken real hits: repeated currency devaluations, imported inflation, and a Suez Canal revenue crisis after Red Sea shipping attacks disrupted global trade. And it still holds second place. Why? Over 110 million people, natural gas self-sufficient from major offshore fields, a brand new capital city being built from the ground up outside Cairo, and remittance pouring in from one of the largest diasporas anywhere in the world. Egypt takes punches and keeps standing. That's the whole story of this economy. At number 1 is South Africa. Here's the honest truth: part of why South Africa is back on top is simply that its currency, the rand, didn't collapse the way some of its rivals' currencies did. But that's not the whole story. South Africa still has the deepest capital markets on the continent, the biggest stock exchange, and the most developed banking system, and an industrial base nothing else in Africa matches. Its mining sector, gold, platinum, manganese, feed supply chains that stretch across the entire globe. It's not perfect. Power supply is still unreliable, unemployment is among the highest anywhere in the world, and growth has actually lagged the rest of the continent for a decade. South Africa is the richest economy in Africa in 2026, just not the fastest growing one. Those are two very different titles. One last thing before you go, because this changes everything you just watched. This whole countdown ranks countries in total economic size. Flip the question to wealth per person and the entire list gets rearranged. Small nations like Seychelles, Mauritius, Gabon shoot straight to the top, while Nigeria, a top 4 economy overall, drops way down simply because it has over 200 million people splitting that wealth. So which ranking is the real one? Neither by itself. Total GDP tells you who has global scale and influence. Per person GDP tells you where the average citizen is actually better off. It depends entirely on the question you're asking. That's the list. Which ranking surprised you the most? Nigeria's fall or Algeria at number 3? Let me know in the comment section. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for the next countdown, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.